We often find ourselves trapped in the labyrinth of our own thoughts, especially the negative ones that seem to have a life of their own. They spiral out of control, growing from a whisper to a roar, until they fill our entire mental space. But have you considered where these thoughts come from? To really stop overthinking the negatives, we must first understand their origins. The mind is an incredible tool, capable of extraordinary creativity and problem-solving. However, it can also be a source of great distress when it becomes fixated on negative outcomes. This habit of overthinking often stems from our innate desire to avoid pain and suffering. It's a survival mechanism, one that has served us well in the past. But in our modern world, this mechanism can go into overdrive, leading us to perceive threats where there are none. So, how do you tend to respond when a negative thought arises? Do you push it away, try to reason with it, or get swept away by its current? Most of us will instinctively choose one of these responses, but in doing so, we give these thoughts more power. To alter this pattern, we must shift our approach. The first step is to recognize that thoughts are merely thoughts. They are not facts, and they do not define you. Imagine them as clouds passing in the sky. They may cast a shadow, but they are transient, and above them, the sky remains clear and unchanged. Similarly, beneath the surface of your overthinking lies a stillness, an awareness that is untouched by the turbulence of negative thoughts. When a negative thought grips you, instead of fighting it, sit with it. Observe it without judgment. By doing so, you detach from the thought and gain a clearer perspective. This is not to say that the thought will instantly disappear, but it loses its urgency, its demand to be addressed immediately. This might be difficult at first. The mind resists change, and the pull to slip back into old habits can be strong. But like any skill, with practice, it becomes easier. Start small. Choose one recurring negative thought, and each time it arises, practice observing it without getting involved. Notice how it feels in your body, the emotions it stirs up, but don't engage with the content of the thought itself. In this space of observation, there's a profound realization to be had. You are not your thoughts. This realization is liberating. It opens up a space where you can choose how to respond to your thoughts rather than reacting out of habit. Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons. But observation is only part of the solution. You also need to cultivate an environment within your mind where negative thoughts have less fertile ground to take root. This involves nurturing positive experiences and emotions. It's not about forcing yourself to be positive, but about recognizing and appreciating the good that already exists in your life. Gratitude can be a powerful tool in this regard. By regularly acknowledging what you're thankful for, you create a counterbalance to negativity. It's not that the negatives don't exist, but rather that they are not the whole story. There's a richness to life that negative overthinking obscures. Another aspect to consider is the role of self-compassion. Often, we are our own harshest critics, and this internal dialogue can fuel negative overthinking. Learning to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to a good friend can transform the way you relate to yourself and your thoughts. Now, before we move on, reflect on how you relate to your thoughts. Are you giving them more power than they deserve? What might change if you viewed them as separate from your core self? Navigating the mind's maze. Strategies for disentangling from negativity. In our continued exploration of managing overthinking, we turn to strategies that help us navigate through the dense underbrush of negative thoughts. These strategies are not mere quick fixes. They are tools for a lifelong practice that can bring about profound shifts in our mental landscape. One such strategy is the cultivation of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the art of being fully present in the moment, aware of where we are and what we're doing, without being overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. By practicing mindfulness, we anchor ourselves in the present moment. Negative overthinking often pulls us into the past or flings us into imagined futures. Mindfulness, however, reminds us that the only time we truly have is now. To integrate mindfulness into your life, begin with your breath. It is a constant companion that you often ignore. Pay attention to it. Follow its rhythmic flow. Inhale and exhale and notice the sensations in your body. This simple act can act as an anchor, bringing you back from the stormy seas of overthinking to the safe harbor of the present. Mindfulness can also be practiced through meditation. Meditation teaches you to sit with your thoughts without getting entangled in them. It's not about clearing the mind, but about observing the mind's patterns. Over time, meditation can change the very structure of your brain, strengthening areas associated with attention and emotional regulation. Another powerful strategy is to engage in activities that naturally bring you into the present. This could be anything from painting, playing a musical instrument, engaging in sports, or even gardening. Activities that require your full attention can act as a form of moving meditation, giving your mind a rest from the habitual pattern of negative overthinking. But let's not forget the body in our quest to calm the mind. Physical exercise is not only beneficial for our health, but it also has a direct impact on our mental well-being. Regular exercise releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting properties. It also provides a healthy outlet for stress and anxiety, which can fuel overthinking. Now, physical and mental practices aside, we must also look at the narratives we tell ourselves. Our inner dialogue can be a ruthless critic, a bearer of doubt, and a relentless pessimist. Changing this narrative is essential if we are to break free from the cycle of negative overthinking. But how can we rewrite a story we've told ourselves for so long? Start by identifying the common themes in your narrative. Do you often tell yourself you're not good enough? Do you predict failure before you've even begun? These stories are not truths, but they can become self-fulfilling prophecies if left unchallenged. Once you've identified these narratives, challenge them. Look for evidence that contradicts them. If you believe you always fail, remind yourself of the times you've succeeded. If you think you're not good enough, reflect on the qualities that others appreciate in you. This is not about inflating your ego, but about creating a more balanced view of yourself. Language also plays a crucial role in how we shape our reality. The words you choose to describe your experience can either entrap you in negativity or open doors to new possibilities. Instead of saying, "I always mess things up," try, "I sometimes make mistakes, but I learn from them." This simple shift can change the way you view yourself and your capacity to deal with challenges. Finally, it's important to recognize that you are part of a larger community. Negative overthinking can lead to a feeling of isolation, as if you are the only one struggling with these thoughts. But this is far from the truth. We all experience negative thoughts at times. Sharing your experiences with others can be incredibly validating. It reminds you that you're not alone and that support is available. In sharing, there's also an opportunity to listen to the experiences of others. Often we find mirrors of our own struggles in their stories, and through these shared experiences, we can find common ground and collective wisdom. Reflect on the strategies discussed here. Which ones resonate with you? How might they change the way you interact with your thoughts? The alchemy of perspective. Transforming thought into gold. As we delve further into the profound journey of freeing ourselves from the shackles of negative overthinking, it is crucial to understand that our perspective is the lens through which we view the world. It can either magnify our troubles or illuminate our triumphs. This part of our discussion focuses on the alchemical process of transforming our perspective, turning the leaden weight of negative thoughts into the gold of wisdom and insight. The first step in this transformation is to recognize that our perspective is not fixed. It is malleable and subject to our influence. Just as an artist can choose the hues on their palette, we can choose the colors with which we paint our mental canvas. The question then arises, how do we select the shades that enhance our well-being rather than those that cast our inner world into shadow? One method is to cultivate an attitude of curiosity. When a negative thought emerges, rather than accepting it at face value or rejecting it outright, we can ask, what is this thought trying to tell me? Every thought, especially the negative ones, often carries a message, maybe a fear that needs to be acknowledged, a desire that's going unmet, or a boundary that's being crossed. By approaching our thoughts with curiosity, we transform them into messengers that can guide us towards deeper self-awareness. In this process, it is also important to distinguish between useful reflection and destructive rumination. Reflection is an active, purposeful thought process that seeks to gain insight or solve problems. In contrast, rumination is passive and repetitive, a mental hamster wheel that gets us nowhere. By becoming aware of the difference, we can choose to step off the wheel and engage in reflection that leads to growth and understanding. Another transformative practice is the art of reframing. Reframing involves looking at a situation from a different angle, finding a new way to interpret our experiences. For instance, a failure can be seen as an end or as an invaluable lesson. The choice of perspective will determine whether we remain mired in self-criticism or move forward enriched by new knowledge. It's important to acknowledge that reframing is not about denying the reality of a situation or slapping a positive veneer over genuine distress. Instead, it's about seeking out the facets of truth that can help us to cope more effectively and to recognize the potential for growth even in adversity. To help with reframing, it can be beneficial to adopt a growth mindset. This mindset is grounded in the belief that our abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. Challenges, then, are not roadblocks but opportunities to extend the boundaries of our capabilities. Let's also consider the power of choice. Every day, every moment, we make choices. Some are trivial, others monumental, but each one shapes the narrative of our lives. When it comes to overthinking, we have a choice to remain passive victims of our thoughts or to actively engage with them, to understand them, and ultimately to choose which ones deserve our attention and energy. As we explore our power of choice, let us engage in an exercise of imagination. Picture a situation that usually triggers a cascade of negative overthinking for you. Now, imagine yourself facing this situation with a new perspective, one where you see it not as a threat but as a challenge to be navigated. How does that change your emotional response? What new choices become available to you in this reimagined scenario? This exercise is not about creating a fantasy that ignores reality, but about recognizing that within the spectrum of reality, we have some say in which colors come to the fore. As we prepare to move to the final part of our discussion, consider the alchemy of perspective that we've explored. How might these strategies of curiosity, reflection, reframing, growth mindset, and the power of choice change your relationship with negative thoughts? The Odyssey of Overcoming. Charting the course to mental sovereignty. In our final act of this transformative saga, we journey beyond the ordinary frontiers of thought management into the realm of mental sovereignty. This is where true mastery over one's mind is not just an ideal, but an attainable state of being. Here, we chart the course to an inner dominion where peace and purpose reign, and where overthinking is but a distant echo of a former self. To achieve mental sovereignty, we must embrace the full spectrum of our mental faculties, understanding that our thoughts do not define us. They are simply tools at our disposal. Like an experienced mariner who reads the stars to navigate the vast ocean, we too can learn to read our thoughts, using them to steer our lives in the direction of our deepest values and highest aspirations. The cornerstone of this odyssey is self-compassion. Often we are our own harshest critics, and the journey to mental sovereignty demands that we treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a good friend. When we stumble, as we inevitably will, self-compassion allows us to forgive ourselves, to learn from our missteps, and to move forward without the burden of self-flagellation. Embracing self-compassion requires us to acknowledge our common humanity. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone has moments of weakness. It is part of the shared human experience. Recognizing this can dissolve the walls of isolation that overthinking often erects, and it can foster a sense of connection with others. Another essential element in the quest for mental sovereignty is the establishment of a values-based living. Our values are like the North Star. They provide a steadfast point of reference that can guide our decisions and actions. By identifying and committing to our core values, we create a life that is not only meaningful but also serves as a bulwark against the tides of overthinking. When we are aligned with our values, there is less room for doubt and indecision to take root. To live by our values, we must set intentions and follow through with actions. This means being deliberate about how we spend our time and energy, making sure that our daily habits reflect what is truly important to us. It is in the minutiae of everyday life that our grandest dreams are realized or lost.